You don't have to give your word as an individual, as a senator, as a governor. You don't have to give your word, but when you give your word as a country or in any other capacity, your word's only as valuable as your willingness to keep it. And we made a commitment here, and frankly, my view is I think it was the right commitment, but more importantly, we made a commitment. And you know, in in a democracy, in a world where people need to rely on what you say you're going to do, it is unbelievably important to do what you say you're going to do. Whether that's with Camp Ashraf, Camp Liberty, what we agreed to do with Ukraine, where we said give up those weapons and we'll guarantee your territorial integrity, or with the MEK, the Determination 1, thank goodness we were able to move them off the list they shouldn't have been on, but now we need to move them on a list they should be on, which is the list of a place for a better future, and the United States needs to do its part of that, and you're going to be talking about that today.
It's not only about the 2,800 lives of Iranian dissidents who have been disarmed for 10 years and who have been espousing democracy and women's rights in Iran for 10 years. It is also about whether the greatest nation and the most powerful nation on the face of the earth will keep its word. And so far, the answer has been no. We have not managed to keep our word. And I think that's the common ground that we share. We share the concern about human rights of innocent people who are being executed by using our weapons, and troops who are trained by us under the direction, of course, of Al-Quds, the Iranian Special Forces. And not only are they doing that, we are losing our stature as a great nation, because if great nations or great people don't keep their word, they don't remain great for very long. This is now a challenge for the President of the United States. These negotiations have the possibility of endangering the 2,800 lives. They're already endangered. But should the Iraqi-Iranian alliance, this Shia-Iranian alliance, or the Maliki-Iranian alliance, to be fair about it, should that continue, and should we continue to turn a blind eye and support Nouri al-Maliki, if we do, I didn't mean we, should we, that wasn't a rhetorical question. If we continue to do that, the risk for the 2,800 people at Liberty goes up every single day. They are in a very dangerous situation. If something happens to those people, it will be a moral stain on the presidency of Barack Obama that he will not recover from. This needs attention from the president. Now, we've all written a letter to the president. We've written lots of letters. We get a lot of happy talk back, but we're not interested in talk. We're interested in action. I went to see, when I was last in Europe, I went to Albania, and I took some time off my business there and went to see the 200 people who are freed from Camp Liberty and are now refugees in Albania. It was a very important thing for me that I did that. It meant something to them, but it meant a lot to me to see who these people are and put faces on them. They look like not any Iranian, they look like any citizen of the world.
It's Iran. As the #1 terrorist state, it seems to be much more a cause than a country, but that's, perhaps historians will reflect on that and draw a different conclusion. We need to focus on Iran. And why do we need to focus on Iran? Twofold purpose. I'm here today because I don't think there's any more important purpose than the United States of America to keep its commitment to the men and women, the residents of Camp Liberty. A commitment that's 10 years old, a commitment that probably looks pretty stale to the men and women that are there, the men and women that we can go back time and time again. It looks like we've either ignored or we've retreated. Now, I talked before about America's credibility in the global community, but I got to tell you, if that broader global community looks at the United States and said, hey, the United States signed a letter, gave it to every resident and said, we will be responsible for your security, and then they watch what has happened over the 5 or 6 years, what kind of inference or conclusion would you draw if you were a leader of another country when America gave its word or threatened or suggested, if you don't do something, we will do something, I would dare say that you would be very doubtful, uncertain at best, but doubtful, most likely, because, and by the way, in the world of geopolitics, my friend the ambassador will tell you, credibility is the coin of the realm. You do what you say you're going to do. The United States Department of State, on multiple occasions, with several of my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, academic community, military community, intelligence community, law enforcement community, my Department of State said, we will have a regular presence at Liberty. The United Nations said we will have a regular presence at Unity. Both of them said we will do everything if they move from Ashraf to Liberty to expedite their resettlement. And promise after promise after promise continues to be broken. I sound like a broken record, and I apologize. People that deserve the apology are the people in Liberty, because they trusted us, because we trusted our own government. So a lot of us take this personal. They may not be worried about their credibility and their word, but we worry about ours. And all of you know the incredible group of men and women that are committed to this effort. And then we'll let Iran and figure out whether it wants to be a cause or a country. Right now, it's the source of all evil in that region, and it is the greatest threat to the life and liberty of the men and women at Camp Liberty. Quite an irony, isn't it? Thank you very much.
So throughout the country, Nouri al-Maliki has been allowed to commit his atrocities and his genocide. The most blatant genocide, in lack of a better term, it was genocide, was September 1st, 2013 at Camp Ashraf. From the northern perimeter, the camp that we used to have, now used by the Iraqi forces, came the Iraqi Codes Force, the Iraqi Golden Division, the SWAT team. They were fully dressed in the uniforms. They came in, as Governor Dean said, handcuffed, and then shot people in the back of the head. Went into the medical station where people were trying to get aid, gunned them down, systematically moving through the camp. And what's the first thing the United States does? State Department jumps up and says there is no evidence the Iraqi government was involved. But I'm going to say this one. Anybody who says the United States, anybody who says the government of Nouri al-Maliki was not involved in the Ashraf massacre is either a liar, stupid, or both. I can't be much more blatant than that, can I?
The Iranian regime knows that there will be other waves of demonstrations. We cannot stop those demonstrations. What the Iranian regime has been trying to do, and that's crucial for the understanding of why Tehran wants the head of the MAK. They are afraid of that only centralized organization, which at the next season of spring in Iran will be the one to seize the opportunity historically and then prepare for a transition. They are afraid of the transition. So they beheaded ahead of time. They intercepted ahead of time. This explains the entire Iranian policy in Iraq, among other things. The United States, that's my third section, unfortunately did not have that vision, the one that I have just developed, unfortunately. The past two, if not more, administrations. Now, between 2003 and 2008, we were in Iraq. We needed to continue the work. We needed to work and partner with civil society in Iraq. We needed to form a coalition of the moderates across Iraq, not just build buildings and, nice highways. There was something else. There was something else to be done. Now, between 2003 and 2008, we should have and we could have strategically supported the Iranian opposition, the exiles based in Iraq. Not one Ashraf, 10 Ashrafs. That's what we needed to have in Iraq. Iran has obtained Iraq after we withdrew. And when they obtain Iraq, what is the first thing they would want to do? The very first thing, to eliminate the Iranian opposition in Iraq. I mean, you don't need to be a political scientist. It's clear. If I was the Khomeinist regime, the first thing I would call Maliki, get them out. Sure, get them out. And it took few months, it's in your archives, that Ashraf was dismantled. And the push has begun. There are wishful thinking, what we would have loved to see happening in Iraq, a coalition of the moderates. Now we have Mr. Maliki and his allies in control of central Iraq. We need to reverse the policy on the Iranian regime and start putting pressure on the regime. We need to ask Mr. Maliki to resign. Time is for Mr. Maliki to resign. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
So we need to ask ourselves, why are we here today? The answer, my friends, is that we are here today to keep faith with these brave men and women at Camp Liberty. They are not discouraged. They are not accepting defeat. It is up to us to continue to honor them, to honor their sacrifice, to honor their dedication by rededicating ourselves to the task of continuing this fight. But not just because we want to keep faith, as important as that is. We want to rededicate ourselves because their fight is also our fight. They are fighting for an Iran where all its citizens can speak as they please, worship as they please, and vote as they please. They are fighting for an Iran where men and women have equal rights and where all people can live in freedom and with dignity. They are fighting for an Iran without nuclear weapons, that does not promote terrorism, and that is at peace with all of its neighbors. That is why we are here today, because their fight is a fight that we all believe in. And if we all believe, and if we all continue to fight, I'm confident that one day we will be celebrating in Tehran.